Hello and welcome, Steelers Nation. I'm Stan Savran. Thanks for joining us as we begin to consider potential nominees for the Steelers Hall of Honor class of 2021. We're going to be discussing some names that you've already nominated, but we're going to need your help. I'm on the Steelers Hall of Honor nominating committee, but we need your help in giving us the names to consider. And you can do that very easily. You can either go to Steelers.com, or you can go to the Steelers mobile app, or while we have our discussion here, you can offer some comments in the comments section. You're all certainly welcome to do that. Helping us consider some of these outstanding players in Steelers history is an outstanding player in Steelers history himself, running back Merril Hoge. Merril, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Stan. Good seeing you, my friend.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going into the 2000s. We're in Heinz Field now. We're in an era when the Steelers in that decade would be involved in Super Bowls and, win them and so on and so forth. And you always want to start, I guess, in the middle and work your way out. And one of the key elements to those Steeler defenses, which were so great in those years, started right on the nose. That's with Casey Hampton. Out of the University of Texas, everybody called him Big Snack. If you watched him eat a meal over in the cafeteria, you understood why. The Steelers actually traded down 3 spots because back in those days, not that many people were running a 3-4 defense. So not many people were looking for nose tackles. The Steelers, of course, were, and so Kevin Colbert knew that Casey Hampton would be available. Oh, and what a wise investment that was.
Well, I can tell you this, Stan. You're right. It starts all there in a 3-4, and I don't know if people could appreciate what Casey Hampton's job is. And this is his job. Okay, the description is like this on every down, every time. You're taking on 2 people. You're taking on 2 people, and then these cats behind you are going to make the tackle. That's ultimately what that nose guy is up against. However, he would do that, and oftentimes he would make the tackle. I can't tell you how many defensive coordinators that I would call when I was doing the matchup show with ESPN at the time. And when this defense was in play, I'd start, you get Troy Polamalu's on this team. You got Joey Porter's on this team. Every one of them would start with Casey Hampton. That's like, geez, and if we don't control that guy, we got no shot in this. Controlling him is going to be our problem. And the problem is we got to occupy 2 people for him. That lies our problem. We have no one guy that can block him. And he was the epitome of a nose tackle. You just can't run a 3-4 unless you have a guy like that, period.
So many people have always said that if you're going to run a 3-4 and you don't have a dominating nose tackle, you can't run the defense because he occupies 2 guys, and obviously that clears up one of the inside linebackers primarily to make most of the tackles because a guard or a center is tied up with Casey Hampton.
And he did that to perfection, and I let me correct myself. You can run a 3-4 with a guy, but if he's not like Casey Hampton, you will not be effective with the 3-4. He's what made the Steelers so effective because it started and ended with him, and he was consistent at that. You had to take 2 people, period.
And every one of those inside linebackers, James Ferrier, Larry Foote, would tell you that. Casey Hampton was a big personality. The next gentleman we're going to talk about wasn't that. Very quiet, self-effacing, humble guy. But I've always maintained that Aaron Smith was a guy who he might have been maybe the most important guy. He was just such a quiet leader. People looked up to him. And he didn't get the recognition, which is so often the case with defensive ends in a 3-4, because they don't, in those days, didn't get to rush the passer all that much in Dick LeBeau's system. That was to the outside linebackers creating lanes, but Aaron Smith was just a dominant, critical player to those great Steeler defenses.
Stan, you could argue, if you looked at his numbers and how he had to play, and you have to consider how he had to play, the structure of that defense, you could look at him as a Hall of Famer from the numbers perspective. When you look at what we just talked about Casey Hampton having to do, well, so did Aaron Smith. He had to be the same guy. He had to occupy 2 people. They really have 3 guys on the down line, and those guys are responsible to occupy all 5 guys and make them contribute another guy to you. You 3 got to take on 6. Is ultimately, you are not here to get glory. You are here to occupy people because the people behind you are going to make the tackle, especially because we're going to have nobody on because you're going to do your job. Well, they did such an incredible job. I go back to calling coordinators. I mean, every coordinator, you know, they never went to the second level. They never went to the third level. They said, if we cannot handle Aaron Smith, Casey Hampton, and the bearded one, we have no shot. It is, he goes, and I'm telling you, we're concerned. There was never a team I talked to that said, you know, we feel like we got good matchups. Never. And the way he made tackles, the sacks he even had. I don't know what his sack number is, but he was getting sacks. And that's, I'm telling you, that is not in the description. They don't sit there and go, you can get some sacks, Aaron Smith. But Aaron would whip two people and get the sacks. He would whip two people and get the tackle. You see, he's not supposed to be in those categories. But if you go look at his numbers, it is incredible what he did at that defensive end position based on numbers, tackles, and sacks, because that was not part of the job description when they put together that 3-4.
Too often, Hall of Fame consideration is based on stats, and because the defense they played didn't have it. But to your point, I can't count the number of times that Aaron would push a tackle right back into the quarterback, and if he didn't get him, somebody else would. At least he would destroy the pocket. He was built like a mountain. He was country strong. He was just that wide. He was an amazing guy. Now, the exact opposite of Aaron Smith, personality-wise, was Joey Porter. You knew where Joey was at all times, on the field, off the field, outside the bus, wherever he was. But the one thing about with Joey, it wasn't all talk. He backed it up.
No, there's no question. There's no question about that, Stan. I mean, he's what we call a tempo setter. And sometimes he'd set the tempo too soon and too long, but he was a tempo setter. And then a force. I mean, you know, I always admire, I'm not a player like that. I'm more like in the Aaron Smith role, you know, just I'm going to do my job. You're not going to get me going until you start talking to me too much. Then I'm going to snap. But Joey Porter could talk and back it up. When you look at the way he played the game, I mean, he played like he talked. He played it he was ferocious. I mean, absolutely ferocious. I mean, you came into his neck of the woods, you might not leave. I mean, he tore people up. He tore blockers up. He made vicious tackles. He played coverage. He rushed the quarterback. He's the kind of guy you're like, okay, I want on my team. I mean, he's the one guy you don't want to play against, and he's the one guy you'd like on your team.
He was such an emotional leader. You remember the Super Bowl against Seattle? He did intimidate tight end Jeremy Stevens. They got into it, and I think Stevens was looking around to where he was coming. And also, maybe this doesn't seem like it's important, but Joey was the guy who organized to make Jerome Bettis go out by himself before the Super Bowl in Detroit. Everybody knew it except Jerome playing his last game in his hometown, and Joey was the guy who held everybody back, so Jerome would be the center of attention. I think that resonates with teammates. Yep.
I agree with you, Stan. You know, a guy that is about the team. And now, honestly, Joey Porter, as loud as he was, and the way he carried on, some people can look at that as, you know, he's bringing attention to himself. He's selfish. First of all, that's just his makeup, number one. And number two, he was a complete team player. Could not agree with you more. I've heard many examples of that. I've gotten to know Joey, especially when he was coaching with the Steelers. And he is about the team. He is about other people, and that probably the example you give is the greatest example you could give of him being a team guy and thinking of one player on that particular moment. Not many players would probably do that.
And of course, Joey was an assistant coach under Mike Tomlin for a number of years as well. Some great players from all these decades. We'd like you to give us some more. The Steelers Hall of Fame nominating committee. You can do that by going to Steelers.com or by going to your Steelers mobile app. Merril, thank you so much. It was great reminiscing with you. Some of these great players brings back some fond memories, and it's always a great fond memory to have a chance to spend some time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Good luck to you, because this is not going to be easy, my friend.
No, it's not. We get a list of over 100 every year, and it's difficult. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we try to get to everybody, but 4 per year kind of slows down the process, but I'm hopeful we'll get there. So thanks to Merril, and most importantly, thanks to all of those of you out there throughout Steelers Nation.